Opera's absurd. No, really, it is. On almost every level you care to think about it, this bonkers musical genre with plots that require serious suspension of disbelief should really have been put out to pasture long since. And yet, opera's a little like a random result caused by the improbability drive in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But the improbability drive worked on the basis that everything that can possibly happen has a specific mathematical probability. Conversely, if you calculate precisely how improbable an event is, the improbability drive forces that highly unlikely event to become reality. Applying this illogic allowed the spaceship Heart of Gold to cross interstellar distances instantly by inputting the probability distribution of a desired location, enabling the ship to teleport there without a tediously long flight through hyperspace. Basically, the improbability drive could bend reality to the point of infinite improbability. For example, when the Heart of Gold was threatened by 2 incoming nuclear missiles, the improbability drive transmuted them into a bowl of petunias and a very surprised sperm whale. But back to opera and its shelf life. Applying the logic behind the improbability drive to opera, a bunch of overpriced warblers cosplaying in dramatic constructs that barely hold together in language that's typically cringeworthy morphs into an emotionally charged creative masterpiece that has you sitting on the edge of your seat, captivated by the spectacle unfolding in front of your eyes. But then when you break the experience into its component parts, it starts to unravel a bit. If you've been in an auditorium with English translations flashing on screen above or below the stage, you know exactly what I mean. You might even have been doubly blessed with screens on either side of the stage and have struggled to decide which one to ignore. The plots of most operas are really not that hard to grasp, and in the past, program notes did the job. But okay, so there are issues with program notes. For a start, you have to have quite a large wad of cash to pay for most programs these days. B, you might be a little bit annoyed at having waste all the print waste. And C, you might actually have to read them to get the gist. But I know titles are popular, but I find the screens an annoying distraction from the action. The language itself. Edward Appleton once said, "I don't mind what language an opera is sung in, so long as it's in a language I don't understand." Well, I'm so with him on that. The overly literal translations into English often border on the farcical. Poor or outdated translations of thin, sometimes almost laughable libretti. Take the much-loved La Bohème by Puccini. The starving poet Rodolfo is shivering in his garret and singing about his freezing hands. I think the aria is called "My Tiny Hands Are Frozen." One older translation that's still occasionally used has Rodolfo singing, "I'm so cold, if only I had a muff." Apparently, whenever this appears on screen for modern audiences, it triggers sniggers. In the 19th century, of course, a muff was a hand warmer, often made of fur, and we now think about it as something entirely different, even if it still resembles fur. Then there are the tedious repetitions, and this is often because English sometimes lacks the nuance of Italian. So Italian's got myriad synonyms for love, like mio ben or mio cor or anima mia, to keep it interesting. In English, that often delivers an on-screen snore fest, as endearments like my love are repeated ad nauseam. Thanks, but we got it the first time. Obviously, the better title producers avoid these pitfalls, but I have seen some howlers. The main problem is you can't look away from those flickering screens, just as you can't keep your eyes off a live TV screen in a room you're in. Well, then people often criticise opera for the elitist aspect of it all. As French playwright and actor Molière apocryphally said way back in the 17th century, of all the noises known to man, opera is the most expensive. Molière, of course, was a famous wit noted for his humorous satirical masterworks, including Tartuffe and La Misanthrope. To many people, the perception is that opera is performed for a snobby bunch of entitled elites who are the only people who can afford a season ticket or actually have the staying power to sit through all 4 operas in Wagner's Ring Cycle back to back and give every opera an impression of enjoying the experience. But it's not true. Most of the leading opera houses make a point of offering affordable seats to attract a range of audiences. Well, of course, they do want to fill the cheap seats as well. But in any case, we all know perception's really hard to shake. But despite all the above, people in hordes all over the world still love opera, something that seems about as likely as a couple of armed nukes transforming into a whale and a bowl of petunias. Yet they do. It's basically because it really is the ultimate art form. It's got divine singing, opulent orchestral music, big chorus numbers, high drama, huge sets, sometimes even dance, and loads of emotion. I mean, humour, tragedy, romance, pathos even. It's generally a spectacle which allows us to rise above the inbuilt absurdities because it's just, what can I say? It's so breathtakingly, spine-tinglingly great. Somehow, the leading operas capture the human state in all its weird and wonderful rawness and offer a reflective mirror into our souls. I've just had the privilege of joining the annual Chorus when 700 to 1,000 singers get together to perform one of the great choral works at the Sydney Opera House each year. This time it was Verdi's tour de force crowd pleaser Aida. 2 weeks later, even my earworms have earworms. But Aida wasn't something I desperately wanted to sing. I'm much more into the big choral repertoire than the operatic, and I nearly didn't go. But I'm so glad I did. Like most of the best operas, the plot's faintly incredible. Basically, Aida's a love triangle set in ancient Egypt, where two people end up buried alive, and the third regrets dobbing one of them in. That's the man she loves. It's set during a time of war when ancient Ethiopia is preparing another attack on the Egypt of the pharaohs. This back allows the excuse for stirring martial music, and I really challenge anyone not to have heard the triumphal march at some occasion somewhere sometime. But it also gives ample scope for onstage theatrics. Some of the bigger productions have even had an elephant or two in the triumphal lineup after Egypt has smitten Ethiopia and taken the survivors as slaves. But burying my cynicism and my judgy tendencies alive in their tomb alongside the unfortunate lovers, I honestly had tears welling in my eyes so many times during rehearsals and at the concert itself. The beauty and poignancy of the music and the sheer compulsion of the unfolding story. Also, the magnificence of human vocal artistry with the soloists we had were breathtaking. The work explores eternal themes of love, loss, betrayal, forgiveness, the destructiveness of war, and the relationship between humans and our sort of sometimes slightly difficult gods. It quite literally smacks your soul and emotions. This is Verdi at his sublime best towards the end of his life. With such mastery he draws us into the towering dichotomies of mortality, the heroic nature of our kind as well as our failings and cruelty. But part of the enjoyment on a personal level was travelling to Oz with good friends. We've signed up for Chorus Oz on several occasions. In fact, one of us this was her 14th outing. It's only my 4th. But it reinforces and deepens the bonds of friendship singing in a production like this. But when it comes down to it, it's not just a bunch of people getting together to have the satisfaction of mastering performing a big work. There's also the incredible connection between the performers and the audience. It's almost like an exchange of energy. We give, they take, and they give back again. It's a virtuous cycle of uplift and joy. I've heard this described as a form of communion, and I genuinely do believe it is, because at times it feels spiritual. There's the early anticipation and the excited babble in the auditorium as people wait for the lights to dim, the curtain to rise, and the orchestra's exultant notes to strike up the overture. There follows an almost total immersion in the performance, well, assuming it's a good one. The hush is palpable in the darkened auditorium, broken occasionally by the spontaneous applause at a particular display of artistry, or the odd cough. But finally there's a moment of utter, almost stunned silence as the final echoing chords dissolve to nothing. Then the first tentative claps become a rapturous cacophony of applause. There's cheering and standing ovations as the bows are taken and the principals leave and return to the stage in acknowledgement. That feeling in the auditorium, I just feel overwhelmed by it. The sheer beauty of the atmosphere as people express their feelings. It's a magic that unites us, uplifts us all. And whether you're on or off stage, you leave the theatre or opera house feeling bolstered against life's cares and harsh realities. For a time, our shared experience is all there is, and we revel in postmortems to relieve the best bits, perhaps even over drinks at the bar afterwards. Of course, it helps to be in an iconic venue like the Sydney Opera House with a world-class music director, soloist and orchestra. But live performance of any kind, even in modest venues, brings about deep connection. Last weekend, the audience was treated to a spectacular, emotionally charged outpouring of drama and musical brio. Sadly, no elephants. That these astonishing works of genius are still performed, and I'm lucky enough to take part at this level, is truly awesome. Singing is good for us on every level imaginable. When we sing, even if it's in the shower, it's a holistic mind, body and spirit cocktail of good stuff. As I've written my book Never Succumb to Beige and Other Tips for a Colourful Life in the chapter Sing Long and Prosper. I wish that, however improbable opera is as a form, future audiences continue to feel the love and continue to suspend their disbelief, because when we're together, sharing something precious, it stops being them and us and just becomes us. We're all amplified by the experience, and those insistent little earworms are a glorious way of prolonging the moment.